I will consider that a great achievement to solve the DACA problem. It's been out there for a long time. These are good people. These are people that should be able to stay in this country.
My name is Saúl Rascón Salazar, and today we're going to be talking about the topic of immigration and dreamers in the United States. The topic of immigration has been a trending issue in U.S. elections, political agendas, and general topics of discussion. More recently, though, relative to the history of the U.S., dreamers have been at the center of the attention. At the beginning of the millennium, there has been an influx of immigrants into the United States from all over the world, but more noticeably from Mexico. The topic of immigration and dreamers, people who migrate into the United States, is arguably one of the leading causes of our extreme polarization that exists in our system today. Because of this, I'll be offering analytics, facts, and personal stories to better understand why immigration is inherently good and why a responsible solution to this issue is long overdue. So to start off, I wanted to define the term dreamer. Now, I've heard this term been thrown around for years now, but I wanted to hear from a professional. Joining me through Zoom is good friend and Vice President of Policy for Stand Together, Jorge Lima.
So my name's Jorge Lima. I'm the Vice President for Immigration at Stand Together. Dreamers are young individuals who came to the United States without documentation and were brought here by their parents. And so they didn't have or make a decision. They just followed their parents into the country. The word dreamer technically comes from the bill, right? The dreamer could have obviously preceded the bill, which the first one came out in 2001 through the DREAM Act, and then henceforth people of that class tend to be defined as dreamers.
Okay, now that we understand the term dreamer a little bit better, I want to focus on a more general conversation within the United States. In the 2018 NPR poll, 2/3 of Americans supported legal status for dreamers, and the majority of them opposed building a wall in the southern border. Despite the numerous polls that show support for immigration in the United States, we still have this problem, and dreamers are currently facing this problem along with the pandemic. Because of this support, I want to dive into the arguments that are made for and against immigration. So let's start with the moral argument. The moral argument essentially recognizes diversity as a good thing for the United States. It promotes innovation and values inclusivity as a good thing for this civilization's progress. The next argument is the economic argument. Now for this, I thought it would be best to hear an expert talk about it as it involves statistics and the actual fiscal impact that immigrants have in the country. And joining me also through Zoom is Jose Patiño, former boss and longtime friend. Jose, what exactly is your job title?
My job title is Director of Education Advocacy. So I lead our leadership development arm. And what that means is we have what we call fellows and interns from high school, community college, and university. And my job is to make sure we train as they use as much as we can on the political process.
So in your time as an advocate and speaking to legislators or speaking to the general public, which argument has been more effective, the economic argument or the moral argument? And can you say more on the economic argument?
I think it's depending on the audience, whether it's effective to have the moral argument. I think it's effective with the media, if you do a media campaign. If you are specifically speaking to American public, it helps out because there's sort of this, I think, tradition in American public to believe that the American people always do the right thing. Specifically with elected officials, the moral argument is harder because I think they become more calculated and it's more about the economic argument. But economic argument if it's going to affect them directly.
In the 2018 report done by the House of Representatives, the DACA program more specifically has proven to contribute over $2 billion just in tax revenue. Now, deporting dreamers could cost $60 billion and reduce the economic growth by $280 billion. About 24% of DACA recipients over the age of 25 have already bought their first home. Now, all of these numbers exclude the undocumented community. And while these billions might not sound like a lot, I think it's important to place emphasis on the economic downfall that the United States is undergoing because of this coronavirus pandemic. So after taking into consideration both the moral and economic argument, people still seem and feel very divided. Because of this, I wanted to ask Jorge Lima again, what can we say to people in defense of immigrants when we see refutations like immigration brings terrorism or immigrants take jobs of hardworking Americans, which seem to be the two most common refutations?
Sure. I think obviously we would disagree with the premise of those statements. What I think is important to note is the reason those statements actually work is because at the end of the day, there is fear. It is difficult to deal with fear. And so sometimes that fear is manipulated or used, particularly by extremes, to help drive their own agendas or their own narratives. And so we have to be mindful that in responding to it, it's not just saying, no, that's wrong. Because at the end of the day, it's almost interpreted as us disregarding the fear that underlines why they even believe in that. And so we've got to be very conscious of understanding with folks, if they're willing to believe that perhaps immigrants will take their jobs, then they're fearing for their own livelihood. We also know that, again, immigrants complement rather than take jobs. They create new jobs, give opportunities, whether that's for other immigrants or for American citizens. But I think we have to say more than just, those statements are wrong. We really have to have a conversation with individuals who want to believe that in the first place and say, well, what is the underlying fear? Here is how we actually can address the fears we have. And in fact, immigration is a part of addressing the fear, not a cause of the fear.
So on the topic of fear, I feel absolutely compelled to discuss the COVID-19 pandemic that we're currently undergoing. How is this all going to tie together with immigration? How is the immigrant impact going to affect the way we accept or reject immigration in the future of the United States? Here's what my discussion with expert Jose Patiño consisted of.
Well, first, immigration is a fabric of this nation. I think second thing is that we know that innovation, you need diversity. You can have, if a country is just stagnant of a specific dominant thought, you won't be able to have innovation in all these projects that we have. Well, a large percentage of the companies that we have that have been created and built, specifically in the tech sector, are immigrants from different parts of the world. It's not just one. So you need to have the diversity that exists. And the only way we're going to get out of this recession and this pandemic is through innovation, to diversity, to come together and bind. Because you're acting out of fear instead of optimism, instead of hope, instead of innovation, instead of taking those risks that immigrants often bring. So we can think of what is a short-term benefit versus what is true to our American values as a country, as a nation that has been built by immigrants. Yes, it is built on the genocide of individuals, the slavery, but also migration. And then it's where we want to go from here.
So, here we have our conclusion. Although the Trump administration's agenda has proven to be different, Trump, along with 2/3 of Americans, have shown support for this DACA program, insinuating that immigration is inherently positive for the growth of the United States. Along with reaching that general consensus, we have also come to understand what the term dreamer actually means and where it comes from. And although still extremely polarizing, we have understood what the two most popular arguments for and against immigration are: the moral and the economic argument. We have broken down the xenophobically rooted stereotypes and stigmas that immigration carries, and have hopefully understood the importance of immigration and how it is accepted or rejected during this pandemic for the upcoming economic recovery. But for now, all we can do is advocate for others, educate others, and understand that immigration is an essential American value. Thank you to Jorge Lima from Stand Together and Jose Patiño from Aliento. This has been Saúl Rascón Salazar, and thank you for taking the time to listen.